I mean, I'm not going to say the Cardinals saved their season, but the Cardinals saved their season. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. When I tell you that I've been in sports radio in Phoenix since 2011, and I've hosted this lovely podcast since 2017. This is my 8th season. The amount of emotions that coursed through my body for those 3+ hours yesterday, that may have been the widest range of emotions I felt in 60 minutes of football while covering this team. And I know the Hail Murray and, they've had comebacks, the Raiders come back. It was different because the Cardinals had no business winning this game. Everything was on brand. First drive, touchdown. Kyler Murray, RPO, touchdown. Boom, blink of an eye. And then they score 3 more points the rest of the first half. They go into the half 20-13 down, and I'm like, oh, well, this sucks. 1-4 is not going to be fun because we're going to have all these uncomfortable conversations. And then they saved their season. So I'm going to discuss the mistakes that were made. I'll do that in the third segment. I think it's always nice to keep a balance. By the numbers in general, they weren't eye-popping, but the important ones were. And I'm going to discuss that. But the biggest picture here for me, and the reason why I waited to do the show today, was because if I would have done it last night, I would have been like, it wouldn't have been like, because there were so many things. I could have done 2 hours yesterday, but I decided just let's take a beat, make some dinner, have a beer, go to sleep early, and do it today. So the reason why yesterday was so important, and the reason why it showed such growth, not just from Kyler Murray, not just from the defense, but in the all-encapsulating world that is the new Arizona Cardinals. And let me explain. They looked terrible last week. I think everybody knows that. They haven't beat a team that wasn't decimated by injuries. We know that. And what the Cardinals did yesterday was something that the last regime was never able to do. Win when things weren't perfect. Win when they had no business winning. And even the Hail Murray game in 2020, they had them. And then Stephon Diggs had a really long touchdown catch late in that game to put them up. Like, the Cardinals weren't down like 4 scores or something, or 7 years ago, for that matter. But when you look at what happened yesterday, aside from the opening drive, it's like, okay, cool. They used the run. Awesome. Defense forced a 3-and-out in the 49ers first drive. I was like, all right, cool. Cardinals come down, score, killer. When will it? Not if it will turn. And it did. The block kick return for a touchdown was an absolute gut punch. And then Kyler Murray throws an interception as they're driving the next drive. It's like, it was like, I don't feel Stockholm syndrome for this team often because it's just, I've been able to remove myself from it because I haven't been a fan for 30+ years. I didn't grow up here. I've been immersed in this culture in the Arizona Cardinals for the last 15 years, which is enough of a sample size. But even I was like, about right. And the tough part to stomach at that point was 49ers weren't playing that great. Like, Brandon Ayuk was eating. And it was obvious. Nick Rallis' game plan was give him between the 20s and tighten up around the red zone. And what we saw from this team in the second half was a resiliency that I didn't know existed. And that's not a knock on this team. This is a different level of resiliency that Jonathan Gannon et al. Were able to provide for everybody watching the game. On the road, Levi Stadium. That's not that big of a deal. I think interdivisionally, it's not that big of a deal. There's no team of these four in the NFC West that have a real home field advantage. Like the Seahawks did when it was the Link, when it was Century Link, and it was getting registered on the Richter scale with the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson. That was a long time ago. Levi Stadium, California fans, most of them were under some sort of, were in like the concourse yesterday watching the game from the shade because it was so damn hot, which was a huge bonus for the Cardinals, it seems. The resiliency to come back and win the way they did, and the fervor by which the defense was able to take the second half and make it their own and blank the 49ers, that was it. Here's the thing, and this is something that not a lot of people like to hear, and and you know me, every day as you know me. I don't say, oh, here comes a hot take. Stop it. Oh, I'm going to get some crap for this one. I almost swore. Stop it. That's not it. I just know through the history of the last 2.5 years, most people don't like that moral victory kind of thing. Like, say the Cardinals miss the kick at the end of the game and lose by 1 or lose by 2. It's like, well, it was like 2023 all over again, where it's like almost, not quite, a lot to take away that's positive. But then you look at all the personal mistakes that the Cardinals made, the friendly fire on themselves with the kick, the interception, back to back. But they circumvented that horror and ended up getting a dub. And when I say the season saved, I don't mean, oh, Super Bowl, did it, week 5, chalk it up, may as well sim the rest of the year. It's more, they prove to themselves that it doesn't matter who or where they can win. And that's important. And sure, Christian McCaffrey was out. The 49ers still would be a playoff team without Christian McCaffrey for the entirety of this season. They still have Fred Warner. They still have Nick Bosa. Still have a really good defense. They still have the best left tackle in the game and have, Trent Williams been the best left tackle in the game for quite some time. So while I'm not trying to glorify a road win against a division opponent in week 5 more than the merit it deserves, it's the bigger picture stuff. And that's where I live. That's where I eat. We can talk about EPA. We can talk about quarterback rating and pass rush win rate. Look at the big picture here. The Cardinals had no business winning that game. One person, a very handsome, understated, excellent at his job person. I don't even know who this is for YouTube. I don't even know who Alex Clancy is. Tweeted this at halftime. Oddly enough, though, this does feel like the type of game where Kyler Murray has a magical second half and the Arizona Cardinals steal a win on the road. I don't know who said it. I don't know who Alex Clancy is. Smart dude, though. Called that at halftime. It wasn't one play, although you have the flashball memories we'll talk about next segment. It was how they did it. They won a game that wasn't going perfectly for them, and they were able to come out on top, unlike what they were able to do in Buffalo, unlike what they weren't able to do at home against Detroit a couple weeks ago. Both very winnable games. If you look at me and you told me that the Cardinals were 4-1 right now with the games we watch, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Couple plays here and there. The offense, not humming. The offense didn't look amazing yesterday. The defense did. By the numbers. Next, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right candidates you want to talk to faster. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs isn't just a job board, though, man. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. It's not just a job board. Professionals use it. Like, put it this way. Professionals aren't really on other websites. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them. Because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. I've been through therapy on and off my entire life. I'm starting back up again. And it's awesome how it kind of like chunks away at things you're scared of, things you're worried about, you're anxious about. Therapy is a great tool. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Cardinals win 24-23. What? Excuse me? It was just a glass case of emotion all day yesterday. And it's like, okay, I'm trying to formulate how I'm going to do this podcast. What do we? I started writing. I'm like, oh, Cardinal. And then, it's like, let's just wait and see. Let's wait and see what the old kids got. And even going into the fourth quarter, Cardinals only scored 3 points in the third. And then they put up 11 points in the fourth to take the lead. There were a couple flashball plays. Okay. One, I'm going to kind of go out, like the Kyler Murray rush was fantastic. It was like, I've been pining every day. As you know this, if this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. You'll catch up quickly. I've been yearning, not for 10 rushes for 75 yards to make the offense work from Kyler Murray. That's not what I have been pining for. I've been pining for exactly what play call it was that sprung Kyler for the 50-yard touchdown run. It's like, you need to keep opposing defenses honest. And what a better way to do it than on the opening drive where they're lulled into, okay, let's see, they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved because they've done that every first quarter. It's going to be James Conner. And then it was RPO, gone, touchdown. And then the defensive game plan for the opposing team is shattered in some form or fashion because it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. The Cardinals are great run blocking. They're a great run blocking team, not necessarily against Detroit. Run blocking team, and they've got Kyler Murray, one of the most electric quarterbacks in football. Oh, that's right. Kyler Murray's really fast. Oh, that's right. That can happen at any point. And it did. Okay, so that was fantastic. We'll go all the way to the end. The Marvin Harrison Jr. play. This wasn't a jump ball. Okay, watch the playback. Kyler Murray set this up to where everybody was going one way. Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to have the whole side of the field against a corner on the other side, and he threw the ball to only where Marvin Harrison Jr. could catch it, or there would be pass interference. He lobbed it to make it an easy catch. Marvin Harrison Jr. went up and got it. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a couple tough non-catches with contested balls yesterday. He's a rookie. It's going to take a little time. It's fine. He's going to be okay. But that was such a defining moment for Kyler Murray. He was under control. He knew exactly what was happening, and he made the right throw. And why say, well, any NFL quarterback would do that if they had time. Game on the line, 4th and short, just happy they didn't run the ball, didn't run an RPO. You drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. number 4 overall to use him. They used him in the biggest spot of the season, and it worked. And then you march down and so for me, this could have gotten the big mistakes made. I was saying, tweet out, go for 6. You got to score. Chad Hyland was statistically the worst kicker in football last year with New England. You got to go for 6. This can't be a Matt Amendola situation from 2 years ago, where you're relying on a kicker to make a 45-yarder when he wasn't rostered last week. That's not by accident. He wasn't rostered last week. So when you look at things like this, it's like the Cardinals did everything they could do. They got down to a 35-yard field goal and the kid drilled it. So that's the offense. Oh, and then the other touchdown before that, where they rolled Kyler Murray out and they gave him an option to run or have a receiver flanked on his side. Or not flanked, running a route on his side of the field. He had the defender come to him, popped it over to Elijah Higgins. Touchdown. You're seeing, and it hasn't happened all the time. Okay, so listen. If you're a Kyler Murray hater, that's fine. Nothing I say or nothing that you watch is going to change that. It's very evident, especially with a couple people who are in my Twitter comments always. It's always Kyler Murray fault, Kyler Murray fault, Kyler Murray fault. He's not perfect. He's not perfect. He's making all this money. Okay. Cool. I know that nothing is going to change with how you feel about him. So I'm not going to respond anymore. I've tried to rationalize. Nope. I know he's not perfect. Look at how much bad quarterback. Josh Allen was 9 for 30 yesterday. That was my mean face. How to translate on in the YouTube world. What Kyler Murray has shown, what Drew Petzing, although somewhat maligned this year with his play calling, showed yesterday. What Jonathan Gannon showed yesterday was they're all growing. They're all starting to really figure it out at a higher level than just, let's keep this team in games. And by the numbers, I mean, Kyler Murray wasn't otherworldly. 19 for 30, 195, a touchdown, and a bad interception. James Conner, 86 rushing yards. James Conner was really the catalyst down the stretch in that LeGarrette Blount role that I've been yearning for him. Didn't see Trey Benson really at all. Didn't see Amari DiMercado really at all yesterday. So I don't know. The Trey Benson thing, it's hard to be a rookie running back sometimes. I mean, look at what's happened with Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. And they've been in the league a couple of years. Bijan's second year. It's like they're non-factors in the rushing game for both of their teams. So it's going to take some time. Kyler, 7 for 83. Michael Wilson looked good. Like we might need to have a conversation here about Michael Wilson. Not yet. I think later in the week. I'm having Bo Brock on, my buddy, later in the week. I'm going to ask him about it. You know, Michael Wilson looks to be the most stable of the wide receivers the Cardinals have so far. Marvin Harrison Jr., 2 for 36. Wasn't great. Greg Dortch, non-factor. I don't know why. I tweeted that. I'm like, you know what? If you need some sort of spark, why not run a play for him where he can, all you have to do is get the ball in his hands and let him go. I think a linebacker is going to catch up to him, line him up in the slot, run a quick slant, and let the kid work. He's so fast. He's so good. He knows he's such great awareness for where he is on the field. He's very difficult to get to and very difficult to tackle. They just haven't used him. I don't know. Maybe the wide receiver room is just too full. But the defense was the star. And 3 turnovers. Jesse Luketa with the punch out was absolutely massive. The 2 interceptions, the one to clinch the game, Jalen Thompson pressuring Brock Purdy and Kazir White being on the ball, catching it before it hits the ground. And that was all she wrote. Like, when you look at this team and you saw how they played yesterday and you see that it wasn't perfect, it was ugly for a good portion of that game. They were composed in the second half. They didn't shoot themselves in the foot in the second half. And they played this new brand of Cardinals football. Looked pretty good. They're the only team in the NFC West that won yesterday. It's a big deal. Some big mistakes were made. We got to discuss them next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel line for the Cardinals and 49ers last week was Cardinals were getting 7 points. They went outright as an underdog. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So if you want to put some cheese on, the Saints and Chiefs tonight, Monday Night Football, you can do it. And you're like, well, listen, maybe I got to Google something. I got to look somewhere else. No, you can go to that portion of the game. You can go to the portion of the app or surrounding that game. Even if it's in the middle of the game, you want to do a little live betting action, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, while you're figuring out which wager to make. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Cardinals win 24-23, move to a tie, second place in the NFC West. Seattle lost, bad loss to New York. 49ers got beat by the Rams. The Rams beat the 49ers. Rams beat the 49ers, beat the Rams. The Cardinals are 2-0 in the division. They won one division game in 2022 and 2023 combined. Should have put that in the by the numbers segment. You live and learn. They got to figure out the kicker situation. Chad Hyland was fine. I mean, he made 2 kicks. The block was tough. Tom Brady on the broadcast said that he had an issue with that last year with New England, starting it out low. I saw Nick Lowry, former kicker. Oh no, Jay Feely, former longtime kicker in the NFL, said got to get it in the air. Got to get it in the air. There's no reason why that kick should have been blocked. They didn't even have a whole lot of pressure. He just put his hand up, and that was just nightmare fuel. That was nightmare fuel. And the Cardinals, like, the bigger picture here is, if Matt Prater misses an extended period of time, if he misses next week, like, this isn't something that the Cardinals can just, put a Band-Aid on. They need all the points they can get. And yes, like, there are stories every year where there's a young kicker that has a terrible year, gets cut, and then gets picked up by another team, and he's the next great kicker for that team. Jody Ayler from Fox Sports Tonight was talking about that. Be the next Chandler Catanzaro. We have no idea. But just something to monitor. Kyler Murray, the interception throw to Nick Bosa was unacceptable. It was just vomit-inducing. It's like, it was a great play by Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa just stood there and waited for the ball to get thrown into his breadbasket. And maybe Kyler Murray didn't see him over the 6'2" Kelvin Beachum with James Conner on the other side. Maybe it was the ball was short. It was thrown short. Like, I don't think James Conner could have caught that ball. So I don't know what the hell that was. It was a brain fart by Kyler. They were able to, withstand it. San Francisco tacked on a field goal to go into halftime after that turnover. But all in all, crisis averted with the big mistakes, because they won. I mean, that if the Cardinals would have lost by a field goal and they give up that blocked kick that was returned for a touchdown, perfect bounce, see you later. It's like, it's one of those where it's like you just want to shatter your TV. It's like those things just can't happen. And that's showing, like, the fragile ecosystem the Cardinals are still in, where it's like things aren't perfect yet. The offense didn't look great for the large portion of the first half. They didn't look great for the majority of the game, but they looked great when it mattered. That 4th down conversion, obviously, at the end of the game was huge. And then, that's all she wrote. This is one of those things where I talked about in the first segment, like, if you can win ugly, you have a completely different win trajectory than teams who can only win when everything's going well, like they did with the Rams. Like the 50-50 games, the Cardinals have played in 4 50-50 games, and they won one of them. Like, they 100% could have beat the Lions. They 100% could have beat the Bills. And Washington just absolutely bludgeoned them. I do think that, like, looking back, the Cardinals having 3 games at home and then going on the road to San Francisco, getting embarrassed at home, I don't think that this was like a perfect storm for the Cardinals, because it wasn't. It wasn't like, Brock Purdy had 3 tipped interceptions and then 2 of them got ran back for touchdowns because there was only open green with, a linebacker that caught a tipped ball interception. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. The Cardinals fought for this win and took it from the 49ers. The Cardinals won this game. The 49ers didn't lose it. Just put it that way. Because, listen, like, the 49ers were driving very quickly after that kick. If it wasn't for that blitz call by Nick Rallis, if it wasn't for Jalen Thompson getting home, hitting the hand of Brock Purdy, and it wasn't for Kazir White being there on the spot and having to dive, like it didn't fall into his lap. He had to dive and roll before it hit the ground. Cardinals probably would have lost that game. They were driving. It's a large chunk gain, I think, to George Kittle right away. It's like, oh, well, damn it. It was close. And the interception, like, holy mackerel. The Cardinals took this game. And to see an Arizona Cardinals team do that on the road after getting embarrassed, it at least resets from last week. It cancels out. And if you told me the Cardinals were 2-3 through 5 weeks, I'd be like, yeah. If you told me they beat the Rams and the 49ers to do it, I'd be like, oh, interesting. The NFL is a funny, funny game. People think that, and me included, people was like, oh, well, the roster and the numbers tell the tale until you play. And this wasn't an any given Sunday thing. The Cardinals took this game. They didn't win 34-3 where it's like everything was going right. Everything was only going right for like 7 minutes of this game for the Cardinals. And they maximized. Turning over a San Francisco 49ers team 3 times. Massive. Kyler Murray, 4th and short, finding Marvin Harrison Jr., moving everybody out, giving Marvin a chance to get it. Massive. Kyler Murray running the ball effectively and safely. Massive. It's a lot more to unpack. But Cardinals get a dub and save their season. Could be worse. Alex Lansey, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.